Welcome to Girl Choose Yourself, where we're trading self-doubt for self-trust and settling for soaring. I'm your host, Emer Zone, and together here we're building the confidence to create lives so deliciously bold that they scare us a little. In the best possible way, of course, because life's too damn precious and too short to stay cozy in our comfort zones. It is time to choose ourselves for life so damn fabulous and soulfully fulfilling that we have to keep pinching ourselves to check if we're dreaming. Let's do this. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. This week we're talking about boundaries, which I believe is a really essential life skill that none of us are taught, very few of us master, and many of us suffer from the lack of them. So just think about it. If you can learn to skillfully and wisely say no, you can create what you want. You can protect what you value, and you can change what's not working for you in your life. And that's pretty useful. So let's talk about boundaries. Let's jump in. And maybe you recognize some of these symptoms of having not great boundaries, which is, feeling exhausted, or that you're constantly stretched too thin, but struggling to say no to new commitments. Or you're saying yes to things that you don't even want to do. It's almost like you're automatically saying yes, just to avoid disappointing others. That feels too difficult for you. Or maybe you feel resentment. You said yes to things only to feel resentment and wish that you could get out of it. Or a funnier one is, this concept of cancellation. When something that you've committed to gets cancelled and you feel a sense of elation, like, oh, thank God I don't have to do that. Well, maybe it should have been a no in the first place. So let's look at some of the myths around, or the troublesome beliefs that we have around boundaries. First of all, boundaries are selfish is a big one. I can't say no because that makes me a mean, horrible, selfish, unkind person. Setting a boundary doesn't make you selfish. It really is a reflection of your self-knowledge and self-respect. You can still care about other people without taking on their needs and their wants and prioritizing those. There's this idea that it makes me unkind if I say no. It doesn't make you unkind. It makes you honest, and it makes you a grown-up. Let's face it. If we're constantly saying yes to everybody else, it's almost childlike, isn't it? I'm afraid to say no to you, to let you down. Consider this. If a relationship that you're in right now, where you feel uncomfortable saying no to a request from that person, if that relationship cannot survive you naming your needs and claiming them by saying no, well then what kind of a relationship is that? What kind of a relationship is that? Because you can't truly choose yourself if you're constantly putting other people first. Boundaries and your no, they protect what it is that you are saying a wholehearted yes to in your life. And it's you, just you, who gets to choose what that yes is going to be too in your life. Nobody else. Nobody else gets to determine, say yes to this. This should be important to you. You should want to do this. And I think often we kind of wake up overstretched, overcommitted, feeling resentful, feeling unfulfilled, and not having the time for the projects that we say are important to us, and feeling a sadness about that. And at the core of it is we just haven't got good boundaries, and we don't even know where to start. Nobody taught us, and it just feels like such a muddle. So boundaries are really, when you think about what are they, they're really speaking your truth is at the core of boundaries, and meeting our needs. And that means that we recognize that they are important enough, and we are important enough for those needs to be met. And boundaries are also like limits that we set for ourselves. And they are commitments that we make to ourselves. And in that, we create space for what is most important and what is going to fill us up in our lives, what really, really matters. And a boundary delineates a space between ourselves and others. It's like where I end and you begin. Yeah? Because often our problem with boundaries can be, for some people, they overstep into other people's terrain by overhelping them. We almost infantilize other people by taking on responsibilities for other people's business that we have no business being in. Maybe that's your area of struggle with boundaries. And often that can be rooted in, I want you to like me, I want you to need me. And that's quite problematic if we're getting that external value. I need you to like me. And to get you to like me, I will start doing all these things for you. And then you get kind of used to that and that works for you. And I'm very time poor and I'm kind of waiting for you to say thank you and treat me a certain way. And it just doesn't work like that. There's expectations that somebody else will behave a certain way because we do these things for them. So as I said, boundaries is a very big area. And in this episode, we're not going to be able to deal with all of these different scenarios, but I just wanted to raise that one because it's so common. It may be that, something that you recognize in yourself if you're a people pleaser, if you're an overhelper. So every time that we're setting a boundary, we really are choosing ourselves instead of prioritizing external validation, external approval. The other person saying, oh, thank you so much for doing that for me. Or, that is, it feeds some people's sense of self that, oh, I'm liked. So we're really choosing ourselves in a profound way when we're prioritizing ourselves in this way above any sense of external approval or being liked. And boundaries signal to yourself and to others, and this is key, that your time, your energy and your well-being matter. They matter. Let's face it, we've really got to get clear on what it is that we really love and that what we really want from life, that we're going to say a huge, wholehearted yes to. And then that's the yes that we're protecting. These are the things that we are protecting, what it is we want to say a wholehearted yes to. And we can't just be saying yes to everybody else at the same time. We can't just work harder to keep up with all of those other yeses that we're giving to other people and still be able to honor our own yes. And I just want you to remember this because it's a tricky area when you start to set boundaries. The only people who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any or having very weak boundaries. Those are the people who get upset. The people who want the very best for you, the people who want you to live into the fullest, most magnificent expression of who you are, they know that you can't be committing to everybody else's requests. They know that. So the people who will get irritated and upset are the ones who benefit from you not having any. So let's look at the how-to, because that's the tricky bit for many people, especially if you've been lax in this area. So you need to, first of all, step one, get clear on what you're no longer going to be available for. Yeah? You can't really set the boundaries if you haven't identified, what drains me. I loved this thing I saw in an interview with, I think it was Reese Witherspoon, and she was talking about some wisdom from her mother, and she was talking about some people are heaters and other people are drains. And you know that feeling, right? The energy of some people, you spend some time with them and it's just you feel wrecked, Or other people, they're like a dose of sunshine and they just fill you up, and they're like the heaters. So you really want to look at what's draining you, what activities, what social settings, which individuals are really draining for you? What are you no longer available for? And you could think about maybe making a list and saying, what am I no longer available for? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? And listing that, whether it's you signed up as a volunteer for some committee and people have expected you to continue being available, and it's just too draining. You don't want to do it anymore. And maybe it's some work requests outside of your job description that keep coming your way, and you've just said yes, and people are used to you saying yes, and you're just finding it draining. So make your own personal list of what you're no longer willing to tolerate, what you're no longer available for. An example might be, I'm no longer available for last minute favors that just throw off my schedule. Yeah? And think about this first step when we're getting clear on what we're no longer available for. That's so we're at the core of all of this is that we're protecting our yes. Yeah? And that's really a theme for a different episode when you're talking about what it is that you really is at the core that you most want to protect. But you will know what's draining you, what's making you feel overwhelmed, what's not feeding and fueling you. And so make that list. What am I no longer available for? What am I no longer willing to tolerate that really is drain for me? And then when you're actually thinking about the inbound requests and saying no, you want to use simple, direct language to say no, particularly if you're somebody who struggles with this. You don't want to go into a big, long description. You don't owe an explanation or a long explanation. A short response is typically enough. Now, this is very context sensitive. If you're having a conversation with your boss at work and you're thinking of declining a request from her or from him, there'll be considerations based on the specifics of that context. So what I'm speaking to you about here isn't going to fit into all of those contexts, and you're going to need to consider that in a broader sense. And I'm going to talk to you about a resource that I have that's going to help you with those sort of situations. But for now, let's kind of pare it down to its simplest form. And you're just looking to deliver a no to a request that comes in. So you want to keep it short. You might say something like, I appreciate you asking, but I can't commit to that right now. Another way of saying, no, I don't have the bandwidth for this, but I hope you find the help you need. Or simply, that doesn't work for me. And if you're typically a people pleaser, it can help to get the no out of your mouth, like very clearly at the beginning of your response. No, I can't make that work for me. Thanks for thinking of me. Also, it's important if you're somebody who's an automatic yes or is struggling with this, give yourself a little pause and then, no, that doesn't work for me. No, I can't help you out this time. I hope you find somebody who can. The problem is that you can get that much out and then the person might not, usually won't say, oh, okay, oh, well, had to ask and leave. Expect pushback. You're going to have to hold the line. Lots of people say, oh, I can set the boundary, but they can't hold a boundary. And if you can't hold a boundary, it isn't a boundary. It's just wishful thinking, really. So expect people to resist when you start setting boundaries. And this is typically true if you've been the go-to person for lots of things and you're now choosing to prioritize and choose yourself. People mightn't take you seriously and push you to relent and change your mind. Don't. Guilt. You're going to potentially feel guilty. I want you to just accept that. Oh, look, I'm experiencing a sensation of guilt. We're going to reframe that. Guilt isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong in this situation. It's a sign that you're breaking an old pattern. Remember other people's feelings. They are not our responsibility. They're not our responsibility. When you see somebody upset or irritated that you've set a boundary, it's not our responsibility to make them feel better. Allow other people to be adults. I don't know whether you've read or seen Mel Robbins' or book, Let Them. Let people, just let them be who and how they are. Yeah, that's their work. I've got a fun game for you that sometimes helps. So if you get a lot of comeback from someone when you deliver your no, I love this game. It helps you not to take what they might say personally, and it gives you a little bit of space and to get detached from it and to not be reactive. Yeah? Because we want to stay centered in our decision, in our choice of choosing ourselves, and we need to own the no. For example, you basically listen to their comeback and you name their comeback. For example, maybe it's flattery. Oh, but you're so good at this, but you did such a great job when you volunteered to help with the rummage sale last year. We really needed you. There's no one else who can do it as well as you can. It's never been as well run as it was. That's flattery. So you can just listen and say flattery. In your quietly to yourself, flattery. Or it could be guilt and emotional manipulation. Well, oh God, what are we going to do now? There's nobody else who can do it. The whole project is going to be a disaster if you don't step up and support it and help out here. And if I'd known that you were going to say no, I would have asked somebody else, but it's far too late. This is emotional manipulation. Misrepresentation, personal attack, whatever it is, just by listening and naming it, it gives you a sense of detachment. And then you can just come back to your no statement. A little tip as well on when you said no and you're having a lot of pushback, it can be helpful to use the broken record technique, which is you can stay polite and grounded and hold your boundary and own the no by just repeating it very simply over again, no matter what they say. No, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry I can't help you out this time. No, that doesn't work for me. No, that doesn't work for me. I hope you find someone else. No, that doesn't work for me. Just being a broken record sort of doesn't give anybody any new material to sort of find a chink within your no and sort of go for that and start trying to deliver more of this sort of manipulation or flattery or sensing that there's a weakness there that they can get in. One of your greatest powers really is the power you have not to react when somebody else is reacting to your no. Yeah? So stay grounded, broken record. Every no, I want you to remember this, every no to someone else is a yes to myself. And yeses to yourself are really damn important. Yeah? You mightn't be used to them being important, but they are. And we want to cultivate that. So what happens when you start saying no? Yeah, it can feel awkward, or even a bit scary, right? But self-trust grows as you follow through with your no and you hold that line of the boundary. I heard someone once say, feeling sick to the stomach is just excitement in less fashionable attire. But seriously, the discomfort is real and it's temporary and it's in service of your yes and what you value and what you want to protect and what you want to create and what you don't want to, and what you want to change in your life. It's in service of really important things and it's worth protecting. The discomfort is temporary. And again, reality check, some people will not like it and you may lose some people. I have had relationships that have changed and I have distanced myself from some people who have been hugely problematic when I have expressed and held really important, crucial boundaries that they did not like, that I would not acquiesce to the way they wanted things to be. This was in personal relationships. So it can be It can be tricky at this stage, but I always repeat to myself what I've said to you earlier. If a relationship cannot survive me naming and claiming my needs, well then, is it worth maintaining? Or at least do I separate myself to a degree or step back or be very intentional on how I choose to spend time with individuals like that? And remember as well, if you're not living a life of your own design, that's really an enormous price that you would be paying just to avoid the temporary discomfort that boundary setting involves. You'll feel more in control of your life and have more energy for what truly matters to you when you begin to set boundaries and to hold them. So, signs that you're making progress. You'll feel less resentful in your relationships. You'll no longer be saying yes just to be liked. I kind of wince when I say this because I know that I've done that. I want you to like me, so I'll agree to do that thing. That behavior needs to, we need to grow out of that behavior. It's unhealthy. It doesn't serve us. And another sign that you're making progress is you trust yourself more because you follow through on what you say. When you say no, that no matters. You become a promise keeper, a commitment keeper to yourself. And that's the kind of behavior, that's a muscle that you build that ripples out into other areas of your life and is hugely beneficial. I make and keep promises to myself. Yeah? Massively important. That will improve every area of your life if you can make and keep promises to yourself. So let's just wrap up with some key takeaways that I'd like you to remember. Boundaries aren't selfish. They are self-trust in action. Saying no helps you build more freedom, energy, and peace for the things that actually matter to you in your life. And if you're struggling, start with one small no today. Even a tiny step will help you create momentum. If you'd like to dive deeper into this whole topic of boundaries, saying no with confidence and ease, I have a whole course on this subject called The Elegant No, and you will find all the details on that in the show notes. For now, I just want to close this episode with a quote from Mark Twain, which is really all about why boundaries matter. You'll hear boundaries interwoven into this quote. This is it. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. To live a life like that, boundaries, well, they're essential. Thank you so much for choosing to spend this time with me today. If you enjoy the episode and it resonated with you, please consider subscribing and share this podcast with someone you know who would benefit from the message. If you'd like to take things a step further, you'll find some free and paid resources in the show notes. And until next time, in the unlikely event that no one has told you this yet today, let me have the profound honor of reminding you that you are truly magnificent and the world is a far better and brighter place because you are here with us all. See you next time.